Hello and welcome to Nana's Crafty Home. My name is Tanya. Today's tutorial is going to show you how to make the gorgeous extreme drop leaf stitch. This is part of my Autumn Rhapsody Blanket pattern. This is stitch tutorial number 5 in the series. We are now working through part 2 of our blanket. If you want to learn more about that blanket, you can click on one of the links down below in the description to take you there. I also have a link to the photo tutorial if you are interested in checking that out, as well as the written instructions for this pattern. For today's tutorial, I am going to be using some scrap yarn that I had left over from my blanket. This is the Paint Box Cotton Aran yarn, and I have here the peach orange as my color A and the red wine for color B. This is a somewhat intricate stitch, definitely something that's going to take a little bit of practice. If you've never done a stitch like this before, you're basically working one stitch over 5 different spaces, keeping those loops on your hook and then pulling through at the end. So it can feel a little awkward when you're first doing this stitch, but I think once you've done this a few times, you're going to be a master at it. So let's go ahead and get started. So this stitch is worked in multiples of 7 plus 10 and then 2 additional for the foundation chain. So today I'm going to be working a sample of a total chain of 26, which is multiples of 7 times 2 for 14. I'm going to add 10 to that to get 24, and then add an additional 2 for that foundation chain to get me to 26. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Once you have the number of chains you're going to be making, you're going to double crochet in that 4th chain from the hook. So the 4th chain over, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those skipped chains are going to count as your first stitch, and I'm just simply going to be working a double crochet in every stitch to the end of my chain. So continue on working a double crochet in every chain. Once you've worked a double crochet in every chain, you're going to turn and chain 3 for the beginning of row 2, and that's going to count as a stitch here and throughout the rest of my pattern. This is the row where we're going to begin the base for that drop stitch. So we're going to go ahead and start with a double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to chain 1 and double crochet in the next 7. And we're not going to skip a stitch. We're going to work the next double crochet in the very next stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to repeat that sequence with a chain 1 and double crochet in the next 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if you were working more stitches, you would maintain that sequence, that repeat throughout, with a chain 1 double crochet in the next 7 until you get to the end of your row. When I get to the end of my row, I will have 5 stitches remaining to work. I will chain 1 and double crochet in the last 5 stitches. So for row 3, I'm going to turn my work and chain 3. I'm going to double crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, work a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And again, I'm not going to skip a stitch. I'm going to be working my double crochet in the very next stitch and then I need to make another double crochet in the next stitch, I'm going to ignore that chain 1 from the previous row and work a double crochet in that next stitch. Chain 1, double crochet in the next 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, chain 1, double crochet in the next 2, chain 1, double crochet in the next 5, repeating that down throughout the rest of your row. There's 4 and 5, chain 1, double crochet in the next 2 stitches, and I'm at the end of my row with 4 stitches left. I'm going to chain 1 and double crochet in the last 4 stitches. So what we're doing here is I'm creating these little spaces that when I go to work my extreme drop stitch, I'm going to be working that stitch into these little holes that I'm making. I don't want the holes to be very big, so that's why I'm not skipping stitches. I want to keep the space as small as possible, but still giving me enough space to work my stitches. So for row 4, I'm going to turn and chain 3, double crochet in the next 2 stitches, chain 1, double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So again, I'm working my stitch in the very next stitch, not skipping anything, ignoring chain 1 spaces from the previous row, so working in the top of those double crochet stitches. So there's 2, 3, and 4, chain 1, double crochet in the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, double crochet in the next 4 stitches, and repeating that sequence by chaining 1, double crocheting in the next 3. When I get to the end, I will chain 1 and double crochet in the last 3 stitches. So now I have my base completed. I can come through now to work my extreme drop stitches into these spaces that I have throughout these 3 rows. So I'm going to change to my color B in order to work those stitches. So I've brought in color B for row 5. I'm going to turn my work and chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet in the base of that chain 1 in that same stitch, and single crochet in the next 2 stitches. Now I'm getting ready to start that extreme drop stitch. This stitch really does benefit from practice. This is going to take a little bit of getting used to. You're going to have a lot of loops on your hook, but with practice makes perfect, as I always say, and don't get discouraged. Just practice with this and you will get the rhythm of it. And it is easier than it looks, so do practice with it. So the extreme drop stitch is worked over 5 stitches. I'm going to be working over all of these holes in all of these rows. On the outside edges, I have these chain 1 spaces that I'm going to be coming down, dropping in, and working into. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to yarn over to start, and that next chain 1 space is right there between that next stitch and the stitch I just worked in. So in that first chain 1 space, I'm going to insert my hook and yarn over and pull up a loop. With 3 loops on my hook, I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that same chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I've got these 5 loops on my hook. Now I'm going to come down to the next chain 1 space from the row below that. So that's going to be shifted over 1 stitch down into here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into that chain 1 space, and yarn over and pull up a loop. Now with these stitches that are down below, you're going to want to pull up your loop to be even with the other loops on your hook. So you want to pull that loop up nice and tall. Yarn over, insert your hook into that same space, yarn over and pull up a loop, make it nice and tall. Still keeping all those loops on my hook. Now I'm going to be coming down to that next chain 1 space, which is another row below the one that I just worked, and I'm going to do the same thing again into this chain 1 space by yarning over, inserting my hook into that space, yarning over, pulling up a nice tall loop, yarn over, insert my hook into that same space, yarn over, and pull up a tall loop. Now you can see I've got lots of loops on my hook here, and I'm going to continue coming up a row to that next chain 1 space and do the same thing. Yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and do that twice into that same space. And it helps if you've never done these types of stitches to kind of use your thumb to hold those loops on your hook as you are working through all of these spaces. So that way when you go to insert your hook, you're holding those loops on your hook so they don't go anywhere. So yarn over, we're coming up to the last chain 1 space, back onto that first row, and 2 times yarning over, pulling up a loop, yarning over, inserting our hook, yarning over, pulling up a loop. So you can see here I've got lots and lots of loops on my hook. So to finish out this stitch, I'm going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops that I had on my hook. And I'm going to go ahead and chain to close that stitch and finish it. So you can see how pretty that makes this stitch by bringing those loops down into those, I'm dropping them into these previous rows. It really gives this a pretty effect. Now, of course, I'm going to be skipping those 5 stitches that were up here because I've worked them all down below. But I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, to get back over to the next stitch, and I'm going to single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3, and I'm in another extreme drop section, so I'm going to repeat what I just did by yarning over, inserting my hook into that first chain 1 space in that first row twice, pulling up a loop, then coming down to that second row's chain 1 space, doing the same thing, pulling up a nice tall loop 2 times. Then I'm going to drop down into that third row, same thing, pulling up tall loops 2 times, then coming over, coming up 1 row to that next chain 1 space, pulling up 2 times, and then that last chain 1 space, and then at the end you're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook and chain 1 to close the stitch. Chain 2, single crochet in the next 3 stitches. And when I get to the end, I'm going to single crochet in the remaining 3 stitches. So for row 6, I'm going to turn my work, chain 1, single crochet the base of that chain 1 in that same stitch, single crochet in the next 2 stitches, and then I'm going to work 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space, single crochet in that chain 1 space from that drop stitch, and then single crochet in the next 3 stitches, or 4 stitches, sorry. So really, I'm just working a single crochet in every stitch, and I'm placing 2 single crochets in that chain 2 space, and a single crochet in the chain 1 space, working a single crochet in each of the other stitches. And just continue repeating that on down to the end of this row. So that's all there is to it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful for you today. Please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. And as always, thank you so much for joining me today. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.